Welcome to the Know, Grow, and Scale podcast, where I, Laura Johns, founder and CEO of The Business Growers, interview business leaders to uncover secrets of how to know, grow, and scale your business effectively. Now let's get started with today's episode with Stephen Johnston, CEO of GoodJob. Welcome, Stephen Johnston, back to the Know, Grow, Scale podcast. We have already interviewed you once before talking about your success at SmartSynch, sold for $100 million back in the day. Now you've moved on to bigger and better things. So tell us about GoodJob. I'm very intrigued because now as a CEO, I'm hiring all the time. So I want to hear about GoodJob, your story, and really dig deep into how you're solving hiring problems for businesses all over the country. So welcome.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here today. And I'm excited to talk about GoodJob and the impact we're having on companies throughout America, but with a vision to help companies throughout the world. You know, basically, GoodJob was created to help us all hire better. And the truth is that we all hire right about 50% of the time, almost the same odds of spinning a ball on a roulette wheel and getting black or red. And, you know, many of us have become accustomed to those results, and there's just a better way to do it. And that's why I created GoodJob, so we could try to improve the probability of hiring the right person every time.
Yes. So when did GoodJob get started? How did it get started? And can I talk about the foundation of the company and really where the idea came from? Because I know enough to know that there is something that's particularly different about it, which I want to talk about compared to other hiring assessments. But let's talk about that, like where you got your start, how it came to be.
Yeah. So, I was I was actually serving as an operating partner of a venture capital firm at the time, looking for my next opportunity. And I was introduced to a group of people who had been working on a recruiting oriented solution, leveraging some artificial intelligence technology to try to predict what would make someone successful or not. That business was really driven around the people side of it, the recruiting side. And as I started learning more about that business, I started to see an opportunity to help companies hire better, and ultimately joined that company and closed that company. And then we started with this vision of how can we improve the hiring process for companies. And it was a lot of research during that time period after I joined that company to try to figure out, what we had and, where the real market opportunity was. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a couple of professors from Harvard and Stanford that had been in the hiring space for 40 years, helping Fortune 500 companies hire people better by using trait and behavioral assessment technology. And to make a long story short, I ended up acquiring all that intellectual property and hiring those professors and turned their very comprehensive, deep consulting solution that was, hundreds of thousands of dollars and turned it into a software as a service platform that everybody could use.
So instead of an employer having to pay those hundreds of thousands of dollars, they can go to GoodJob and get it in a monthly subscription fee. That sounds pretty great.
Absolutely. And it's tiered price. So if you're a smaller company, it costs less. If you're, a bigger company, you pay a little more. But at the end of the day, it's affordable. And now we can roll out the behavioral side of hiring to literally every company in the world.
Yeah. So you said something there that I feel like might be a secret sauce. You said the traits and behaviors, or trait and behavioral science. The way that you said it was interesting. So I've taken Myers-Briggs. I've taken the Clifton Strengths Finder. I've had, throughout my career, taken a DISC, number of different assessments. So tell me what GoodJob does that these other assessments don't do, or why, if I'm hiring, I would be interested in GoodJob over another personality test.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what I want to say is that all of those assessment tests are relevant, and I'm not against any of them. They're all valuable in their own way. But, pretty much every assessment test measures things differently. But the problem with those assessment tests as it relates to hiring is, number one, they don't really tell you who to hire and who not to hire. Okay, that was my biggest problem. Those assessment tests, all of them have been around for, 20, 30, 40 years, but people are still hiring correctly 46% of the time. And so the problem is with the way that those assessment tests are out there today, they're very valuable and you can learn a lot from them. But I just didn't think they were set up to help somebody hire better. And what I mean by that is most of them are very long. And so if you got an applicant who may or may not be interested in your company, you really can't have anything over 10 minutes. The research will tell you, or they'll drop off and never take it. And so it was really important that we built an assessment test that was less than 10 minutes. But the most important thing is what we're measuring with our assessment test. It's not a personality test. It is a work trait and behavior test. And so what we do in a very short period of time is get really, really focused on the behaviors and traits that make people successful in a company in a very specific role. And it's company and role specific, which is another thing that's different than all of the other assessment tests out there. And so we're able to determine with a high degree of accuracy what traits and behaviors make people perform well at a company, and then tell you in 10 minutes or less whether or not an applicant has those behaviors or not, which if they have those behaviors, then they're more likely to be successful and to be happier in their job and to be a better performer. And so I want you to think about the world this way. We have resumes that are out there today, and for hundreds of years, everybody's hired on resumes. Okay. And I didn't make this data up. This comes from SHRM. We get it right 46% of the time on average. Okay. What's missing? Well, if you knew what the fit was to the job at the same time before you ever interviewed a candidate, and so you're able to take a fit score, we call it the GoodJob score, plus a resume. Well, now you have enough information to where you can make a more intelligent decision and hopefully get it correct, 80 to 90% of the time. Nothing's going to be right 100% of the time. But if we're able to improve that probability 30 to 40 percentage points, we feel like we're really making a difference with companies, but also with people.
Well, and I can imagine, so you're not saying resumes are obsolete. You're saying your software paired with a resume kind of combined helps an employer. I can imagine if I'm hiring a lot of people, this probably cuts that process in half. Like what is that? What have you seen in terms of time savings? I mean, I just know, and I'm a small business, but I know how much it's costing me to hire, from time spent to digging through resumes to the subscriptions that I'm paying on Indeed and LinkedIn and all these things. So, and I'm a small, shop. So what kind of savings are you seeing? What kind of ROI are you seeing at GoodJob in terms of what people can expect to save?
Well, there's a couple things about that, and that's a layered question.
Yeah.
So let me break it apart.
Unpack it. Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why what we do can make economic sense for a company. Number one, you mentioned the time savings, just the time savings of figuring out who I should hire, who should I prioritize in my process versus who I shouldn't. So let's use, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter, a source of candidates. Let's say you get a source of 100, 200 candidates for a particular job. How do you know who the best candidates are? And you can sit there like we always have done and flip through resumes and say, I like this one, I like this one, she's good, he's good, she's not, he's not, whatever it is. But that just takes an enormous amount of time. And in addition to that, it is, you as a person who's hiring, you're not always in the same mood. And so, that can influence who you pick.
Right.
Just who you are as an individual, just like me. I mean,
right.
If I'm in a good mood,
I'm sitting here thinking my husband's last job that he got, 2 jobs ago, the job that he got, the pastor that he was working with said, man, when I saw your resume, I was just really impressed. And I was like, I did that. He didn't even do his resume. So there's that factor too, is like, you know, they could have gone and paid. I know now you can go pay for somebody to do your resume and they funnel it through, and let's just hope it's all, of course, in his case, it was all true. It was just, it looked sharp. You know?
Well, and that also, I mean, that leads to a whole nother issue relative to, you know, resumes being the only predictor of success. There's a lot of ways resumes can be manipulated. People who of means can go pay for somebody to build a resume. You know, if you come from a poorer community or you don't have the means or whatever it is, you can't go hire somebody to produce your resume. And so it inherently makes the selection process a little unfair. But using behavioral modeling, it really flattens out the curve, because there's two things there. One is nobody knows what the answer is. Okay, because the answer is generated by a company, in a particular company and in a particular role. And so you can't go cheat the system. You can't say, I do this. It may or may not be a good fit for the job. But, you know, I want to come back to this this ROI question that you asked, because it is the right question to ask. And, you know, we've all made bad hires. Okay. And the cost of a bad hire is phenomenal. And, you know, some people tell you it's, you know, at least the cost of a person's salary. You know, there are other people or other analysis out there that'll tell you it's 5 times the cost of a person's salary.
I was going to say, I mean, I could see culture, that what it does to your culture, you can't even put a number on, but, you know, there's culture stuff,
100%.
there's training, the time that you took to train. We just had several staff members in last week, new staff members in last week, and that just alone, flying everybody in for training, you know, there's a lot to factor in.
Well, and think about this, you know, let's say you just hire, and I know you, you know, made great hires, but let's just assume that, you know, one of the people you just brought in, you figure out about 30 days into the job, you know, I'm not sure, you know, she's the best fit for this job. Okay. But you're not going to fire her in 30 days. You're going to let that linger for 90 days, 120 days, 180 days. Okay. So back to the ROI question. So my deal was, the commitment I wanted to make to our companies that use our product is, if we help you avoid one bad hire, just one out of however many, the system will pay for itself in 1 year.
Yeah.
And that's how, you know, and that's how we price the product. So, you know, go ahead.
So here we are, March 2023, and we've got, you know, predictions, and some are already seeing that we're having some economic challenges, especially as it pertains to, you know, our economy and the potential downturn, people paying bills, et cetera, et cetera. What is your take on how this affects, you know, someone that's hiring, or talent acquisition person, or, you know, and how it's affecting the industry in terms of what you guys do and how you can help with that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the hiring market is very dynamic. It's very different this month, March of 2023, than it was March of 2022. It's changed a lot, even in the last 12 months. And I think now that the economy is beginning to slow down, we are seeing a shift in the hiring process where, one, people aren't hiring as many people, and the people who weren't necessarily looking for jobs are now starting to get concerned that they may have to find a new job. And so there's a lot of changes going on right now in the system. This is what I would say relative to that. You want to, when you have to hire somebody in today's world, it is critically important that you make a good decision. And now that I know what I know about the value of behavioral modeling, I would never hire anyone without that information, because I believe that is a better predictor of success than past performance. And so in today's world, I think companies are starting to become really smart about who they want to hire. They want to be able to, you know, quickly assess who the best people are. They know that the best people aren't going to be on the market long, and so they want to be able to make a quick decision. And so, you know, I do think it's a different environment, but I actually think over the next 12 months it'll even change again. And I'm not sure what it'll hold, but I think it'll be different than it is today.
Yeah. So if I'm a marketing agency owner, let's just say, and I know who I'm kind of just interested in the process. So if I'm hiring, I get GoodJob to come in. What's the first thing you do? What does the process for me look like? I know you said that we take the behaviors of my current team. So am I telling you who my rock stars are and just not mentioning the ones that, of course, that's all I have is rock stars. So
Well,
I want to
listen,
replicate 'em.
I'm about to say, so in your case, it's a little bit different. You have a whole team of rock stars. So,
Right. I'm unique, but let's just say I didn't. I'm sure there'll come a day.
Yeah. So, Laura, this is how it works. All of your current people in a particular role take the assessment. The company weights those people based on performance and the attributes that they have on a scale of 1 to 7. When you're using a scale of 1 to 7, 5 is the natural point of indifference. 6 and 7 are typically high performers. People who get a 4, that's really equal to a 1. And I know that sounds harsh, but if you rate somebody below 5, that
but if
means
you're only if you're only looking for the top, then that's the best way to cut
what we do,
check.
we actually we take everyone's behaviors, even the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, and 7s. It's just we have an algorithm that calculates which of those behaviors are most dominant in that role and traits. And then we build a behavioral model for that role based on those behaviors and the performance of people in your company. And then every new applicant that applies for a job, we encourage a company on the very front end of the hiring process, the minute they hit the apply, submit application, the first thing they get is a path assessment and a nice invitation to take it from the company. And then when they take it, it tells the company how well that person matches to the behaviors of the job that they know to be true. They're high performers. And then so now you can take that GoodJob score and you can take the resume and, now you have a complete picture of a person. And then you can interview them and you can have the conversation around non-negotiables or, other things that you might want to talk to them about. But when you interview them that they already have the behaviors and traits to be successful in that job.
Right. And I can see how, so essentially if I'm hiring and I know the names of my top 3 stellars and I'm like, these are the people we want more of, and I'm hiring a lot of like client success managers. So you would come in and evaluate my team, you would bubble up the top performers, and then everybody that is applying for the job, I'd be able to see it very easily in your software who I need to choose from rather than taking the 100 people that applied and having to
that's right. We basically rank your potential applicants on who is likely to be the most successful in that job. And you said something very important. You mentioned you have 3 client success managers. The technology works with small groups, but the larger data pool you can get, the better. And that's why our focus initially has really been on larger companies, because they have these massive workforces where we can build a highly accurate behavioral model.
Right. So I guess one of the things I'm very passionate about, even though I have hired women to date, is I do want diversity in my office, and I want to make sure that we are not just continuing to create the same type of person. I want to make sure that we honor cultural diversity and gender diversity and things like that. So it seems like the software, if it's just behavioral, then that probably takes care of that, right? Is there an allowance for that? That kind of, if you're just looking at behaviors, that seems like that would take care of that concern for a lot of hiring managers.
Yeah, it's an extremely non-biased assessment. We capture no information on anybody. We never even see the person before they take it. They take the assessment. It is 100% possible for people from different backgrounds, genders, whatever it is, to have the same behaviors. I use this example. I grew up in, South Jackson, Mississippi, where, we just didn't, I didn't grow up in a really wealthy community or whatever it might be. But I'll tell you one behavior I learned while I was there was competitiveness. And that's a behavior that lives inside of me. Well, you can take somebody who, comes from means and, has a totally different background and, could be a female, male, black, white, whatever it might be. And they can learn that, or they can be just as much of a competitor in their environment as someone can be in another environment. And so it was very important when we built this assessment, working with the professors, to make sure that nothing we did could introduce the opportunity for bias in the hiring process. And so we believe we've achieved that. And that's why we ask every company to send it out to every applicant. And because what happens in most cases today is companies self-select who they assess. Well, the minute you self-select somebody, you've introduced bias into your hiring process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or like you said earlier about the resume, like you mentioned earlier about the resume, is if you're looking at resumes, you might be able to quickly see who had the resources to spend money on getting the resume professionally done versus who didn't.
Or what school? Yeah. What school did they go to?
Right.
Were they in, what group did they belong to, or whatever it might be.
Right.
But but on the behavior side, it's just really, is this person wired? We're all wired differently, and there's nothing wrong with the way anybody's wired. Everybody has dominant behaviors and traits. You may not be a good fit for a job. Well, even as a person, as an applicant, I'd like to know that before I, take that job, because if I go take a job where I'm not a good fit, I'm going to be unhappy. I'm going to find myself not being successful. And, so it works both ways for the candidate as well as for the company.
Right. That's great. So what is on the horizon for GoodJob? What's next? It sounds like the software is working and is figured out, and that's great because, I know you're not technically a startup, but a lot of times when you're developing a software, that part of it is, the hardest hurdle to get through. So congratulations.
I feel like until you reach $1 billion in value, people call you a startup.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And the software, it works. It's very clean. It's good. It performs the functions that we want it to. We actually just announced a partnership with a company called Merge that gives us access to interface our data into over 50 ATS systems, which is usually the system that most recruiting most companies, recruiting organizations use to manage candidates. And so, we are on go mode. We're in growth mode. It's kind of scale up mode. We're trying to get as many companies out there as we can to use the product. And that's sort of the phase of life we're in. It's pitching every day. It's telling the story. It's implementing trials, rolling it out. And that's just, kind of the bread and butter of what we do every day. It's going very well. We have some great clients. And, from my standpoint, I just would like to, reach as many companies as fast as we can, just so we can continue to build the business.
All right. So if somebody's looking for a GoodJob, where do they go? Where's GoodJob?
Yeah, the best place to go is goodjob.io, which is our website. And it is full of information about the value of the product, the return on investment, how to get in touch with us. And, I just like to send people to our beautiful website that was designed by a great marketing company.
Yes, I know them.
Called the Business Growers.
Well, great. Well, I'm fired up about what GoodJob is doing. Honestly, I feel like just having known you for decades that you've landed in the exact place that you should. I'm excited that you're continuing to get to be behind a technology that you're passionate about. I've been able to see you do that for a long time. So it's fun to see. And I know that GoodJob's going to be successful with your leadership. So we're excited to see you grow.
Well, I appreciate it. And the real root of what drives me every day is I fundamentally believe, and it's really a learned belief from the data scientists that I've purchased this technology from, that every person we help get matched to a job that is where there's a great match in their traits and behaviors, that we are helping that person be more successful in life. We're helping them, putting them in an environment where they can be happy and productive. And so I really do feel like we're making a difference. Even though we sell to the companies, I feel like we're making just as big of a mark on the people that get selected because of trait behavioral modeling as we are on the companies that we're serving today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Stephen, for your time. I'm excited to see what happens with GoodJob, and congratulations on all your success.
Well, thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Make sure to like and subscribe so you'll be notified of new episodes. And to learn more about the Business Growers, visit our website at www.thebusinessgrowers.com.